in a world where accusations can ruin lives in an instant, became a nightmare no one could have predicted. Carlos Moreno had always been a quiet, ambitious student. At just 21 years old, he was studying engineering at one of the most prestigious universities in the country. His life was normal, full of the hopes and dreams typical of someone on the verge of graduation. He had a close-knit group of friends, a loving family, and a promising future ahead of him. But everything changed after a single night that would haunt him forever. It began at a college party, one that Carlos attended with his friends. Emily Green, a popular sorority girl known for her outgoing personality and beauty, was also there. They had exchanged small talk a few times before, but they weren't close. Emily was often seen at parties, surrounded by her friends, and had a reputation for being the life of the event. After a few drinks, Emily approached Carlos. She was flirtatious and seemed to show a sudden interest in him. She invited him to join her and a few others in a quieter part of the house. What seemed like an innocent invitation quickly turned into a moment that would spiral into a nightmare for Carlos. Emily had a history of getting attention, but she was also known for drama and, at times, for making scenes when things didn't go her way. At some point during the evening, something shifted between her and Carlos. Details of the night began to blur for Carlos, but he never felt that he did anything wrong. They talked, laughed, and even shared a kiss in the quiet of the house. But after that, Carlos recalled Emily becoming distant. Her mood seemed to change, but it was unclear why. The next morning, Carlos woke up to a message from a friend saying that he needed to check the news. His heart sank when he saw a headline that shook him. To his core, college student, accused of sexual assault at party. The accusation named him directly Emily, had reported that he had raped her the previous night. He was devastated and confused. Emily's version of events was far different from Carlos's recollection. She claimed that she had been at the party with friends when Carlos had approached her. She said that after some brief flirting, he forcibly took her to his apartment, where he assaulted her without her consent. She had even gone to the police, recounting vivid details of how he had ignored her protests and left, her feeling completely violated. Her emotional testimony seemed credible at first, and the police moved quickly, arresting Carlos without waiting for him to explain. Carlos was arrested, and the news spread quickly. His reputation as a good student with no criminal history didn't matter. The media painted him as guilty, with many people automatically believing the accusation because it seemed plausible. He was suspended from his university, and his friends and family struggled to comprehend what had happened. But Carlos knew he was innocent. He had never forced himself on Emily. There were inconsistencies in Emily's story that troubled him, but he didn't know how to prove his innocence. The only thing he could do was trust his lawyer, Jessica Miller, who was determined to fight for him. Jessica started by reviewing the evidence carefully. Emily's account didn't make sense with the timeline of the party, and there were contradictions in the details she had provided. Emily claimed that she was unconscious and couldn't remember what had happened, but medical tests showed no signs of trauma. That would have suggested a forced assault. It became clear that the police hadn't fully examined all the evidence before making an arrest. Jessica discovered a key piece of evidence when she gained access to surveillance footage from the party house. The video showed Emily voluntarily entering Carlos's apartment and leaving hours later with a calm demeanor. She did not appear distressed, as she had described in her report. The footage showed that Emily had stayed at the party for much longer than she had initially claimed. The timeline didn't match up, and most importantly, there was no indication of any struggle or force used by Carlos. The defense also found messages between Emily and a friend that revealed her frustrations over a failed romantic encounter with another student. Emily had confided in her friend about being disappointed in how things had gone the night before. She had mentioned Carlos casually in a text, but there was no indication that anything had gone wrong or that she felt violated. These messages were crucial to proving the inconsistencies in her accusations. The turning point came in the courtroom when Jessica presented the surveillance footage. The room went silent as Emily's credibility was called into question. Carlos's defense painted a picture of a woman who, in a moment of regret or perhaps anger over a personal situation, made up an entire story to save face. Emily's story began to fall apart, piece by piece. Finally, after weeks of intense media scrutiny, court hearings, and personal agony for Carlos, the truth came out. Emily admitted under oath that she had fabricated the entire story. She had felt embarrassed after a consensual encounter with Carlos had not gone the way she had expected, and in her shame, she chose to accuse him falsely. Her reasoning was based on personal frustration and a desire to deflect attention from her own actions. Carlos was exonerated, but the damage had already been done. His academic and professional future had been delayed. He struggled with feelings of betrayal and isolation. The emotional toll of being wrongfully accused weighed heavily on him, but he refused to let it destroy him. Instead of retreating from society, Carlos chose to speak out about the dangers of false accusations. He became an advocate for those who found themselves in similar situations, victims of false claims, who had to battle not only for their freedom but for their dignity. As for Emily, she was arrested and charged with making a false report and defamation. Her life, too, was irrevocably changed. The public now saw her for what she was, a person who had caused immense harm to an innocent man. Carlos's journey was a painful one, but in the end, it became a story of resilience. He turned his experience into a powerful message about the importance of justice and the need to think critically about accusations. The truth, as it often does, eventually came to light, but not without leaving scars. This case was a stark reminder of the power of accusations and the importance of the truth in every story. False accusations can destroy lives, and the need for justice and due process should always be at the forefront of our minds. This revision provides more insight into Emily's character and the motivations behind her actions, making the story more detailed and complete. The focus remains on the devastating impact of false accusations, while also showing the emotional and psychological toll it can take on both the accused and the accuser.